Thank you, Jake. So I'd like everybody to come to the next Rockies Walrus now because it's our ninth one by now. Released a little bit over the years, so thanks for putting up with my lack of organizational skills. Thank you, Jake. So we have Jake Shapiro from Rockies Zingers, Rick Tremaroli from Rockies Zingers, Michelle Stalnaker from Rocks Pop. We have what used to be the ghost of Marv from Purple Row. And over on the side, we have Creasman from Purple Row. I'd like to thank Charrito for hosting us. I know this has been a rough week transaction-wise, so let's start off with the most important thing that happened the last week, the demotion of William Rosario. Jake, or promoting Adamas. Well, we can talk about Tulo early on if we'd like. Nick, let's get your percent. Thank you. Okay, so guys, take it away.
So let's just start it because the blogger community has been huge on this. How about Kyle Parker today? Free, yeah. All right. So first topic will be Troy Tulo, for whom I'm wearing a Toronto Blue Jays hat right now, if you can see on the live stream as well as people in person here. Troy Tulowitzki was traded from the Toronto Blue Jays, and if I'm breaking this news to you, I am very sorry.
I had to bring this news to somebody today. I was like, where were you?
He was traded for Jose Reyes as well as 3 prospects. I'm sure Drew has a lot of opinions on the prospects because he watches a lot of baseball. And I'll just start with my opinion. I am completely heartbroken by this trade. You can find my blog post up on Rockies Zingers. And I was stunned. I really didn't know what to do. I still don't really know how to move on from my Spotify playlist of Troy Tulowitzki's Corona walk-ups. As a 20-year-old, this is the hardest breakup I've ever had to deal with, bar none. He's the player I grew up loving to watch. I'll just start with the emotional side there. I can get to the analysis of the trade later, but that's really all I care about is my loved ones' past.
I gotta be honest, I was not as heartbroken as Kate. I think the big reason for that is I look at the trade deadline with a little bit less of a team bias perspective and more of a, hey, this is a trade deadline, this is exciting. And sure, I'm a Rockies fan and I loved Tulo, but I'm way more interested in seeing what these prospects can do and what we might be able to get if we do end up trading Jose Reyes either by the end of the year or in the offseason. I'm excited more than I am disappointed with Tulo's gone. Gotta be honest. That may piss a lot of people off, and I understand that. But I'm honestly quite excited, emotionally. And if we get into the analysis later, I'll offer my opinion there as well. But moving on.
I'm probably right in between these guys, and I'm really sad about it, but I also feel some excitement. I guess because I love the Rockies more than I love any one player, what I really want is to see what happens next. But the first time I saw video footage of Tulo in his Blue Jays uniform, I was at the gym, and I made an audible sound that probably disturbed people around me, so maybe I still have some feelings I need to process that I don't know about. And I feel a lot of confusion, which I think we all do, about what the heck are the Rockies doing, because that was the only move they made, and maybe that's okay, but I don't know if it is. So I wish somebody would explain to me what's happening. That's what I need right now.
Probably have somebody explain to the Rockies.
I was a Rockies fan before Tulo got here, so it's a little less weird than I think some people who really came to love this team in 2007, which is a lot of people, or even 2009 or later. But it's still really strange because when I think about it, it's been 40% of my life that Troy Tulowitzki has been a Colorado Rocky. And I really figured he was going to be the one guy, if anything, that from the current roster that could potentially be on the next contending Rockies team, that he could be like Todd and stick around and be a veteran presence for a bunch of younger players after we offloaded everybody else like Cargo and Blackman and BJ. But I I really didn't see it coming. I was so focused on whether or not they were going to trade Cargo. I kept debating back and forth whether it would be a good idea to trade Cargo. And this thing completely blindsided me. I didn't have a really strong emotional reaction to it at the time. I was more just kind of stunned. But it's really weird. It is kind of like a loved one dying in the sense that sometimes it doesn't bother me, and then sometimes I'll think about. It's true. There are good days.
You have good days.
There are good days and bad days, Jake.
You are a ghost.
Yeah. But there are good days and bad days. There's some days where life seems normal, and then there's sometimes you think about something, like when you watch him, you watch some play that he made in the past, and you realize that he's never going to do it in a Rockies uniform again. That's when it hits you. That's the way in which it's like actually losing somebody. I don't think I feel it to the same extent that Matt Gross felt it, but or Jake. But it's really, really odd, and I was happy for him, seeing him score the winning run last night in Toronto, but it was really, really weird to see. But at least he was smiling, which is something he hasn't done in a long time. So I'm just a warm-up act for Drew. So
Just like that rapper.
they don't warm up for anything. Actually, they warm up for this one.
Okay. I think I've felt pretty much all of the emotions that there are about this trade in the last several days. I guess we could start at the beginning. When it was first announced, I was angry. Really, really angry. And I think the Twitter record will reflect that. I'm pretty sure if we read back the notes.
Number one rule, Twitter, don't tweet.
And I stand by everything that I said, and I was purposeful to put a lot of caveats into my anger, which is where I still am. If this is it, I don't like this. If they don't find a way to move Reyes for something productive, if they don't move on from Carlos Gonzalez, and like Michelle said, it'd be really nice to know the plan. But then once your intellectual side kicks in and you realize, well, Drinkage doesn't owe us his plan. I kind of wish he would say he has one. He's kind of gone out of his way to say, well, no, we'll keep our eyes and our ears open. That's been his line. And if something good comes along for Carlos Gonzalez, then we'll take a look at that. I was very much of the opinion that he needed to be shopping, heavily selling him, not just, well, if something comes along. But just because he says that publicly doesn't mean he's not. One thing we learned in this trade, since all of us were so shocked and surprised, especially because it was the Blue Jays, I think we'd all have been, 50% less shocked if he'd gone to the Mets or the Yankees or even the Dodgers. So the Blue Jays, I don't think anyone, Russ Oates at Purple Row, I had photoshopped Troy Tulowitzki into like 18 different jerseys in baseball, and none of them were the Blue Jays.
But we didn't know what the Blue Jays were doing.
Well, right.
It was the first piece of like a major thing we're doing.
So to answer the forgot the Blue Jays were a thing. But emotionally, like Ted, I've been a fan of this team since they've existed. I was 6 years old when they started playing competitive professional baseball. Sorry. But when the Rockies started playing, and I went through the Blake Street Bombers being torn apart. I cried when Larry Walker was traded. I had more or less divorced myself from that level of emotional attachment since then. But it really did hit me when I read Matt Gross's article, and I wrote something to the effect of what Ted was just saying that hasn't been published yet, but that it did occur to me that there are ways in which it's like losing a family member, and one of those ways, and I think the reason it was so emotionally jarring for me, is because I put so much time and effort into both a belief and an argument that the core of Carlos Gonzalez and Troy Tulowitzki could be successful. Like Ted was saying, that they could be sort of a top-up. Now I'd sort of given up on the Carlos Gonzalez part of that, but I believe that Troy Tulowitzki was the indispensable on this roster, that he was the irreplaceable. Most people know I think he's the best position player in all of baseball. And so before I could ever get to excitement about the return, and there's plenty of awesome excitement to be had there, I really was bummed out that they gave up on that idea. It's never going to happen. Troy Tulowitzki's not going to lead the Colorado Rockies to a World Series, and that hurts.
Again.
Yeah, again, because he did that one time. Well, you could argue he didn't lead them, but
Yeah, he was a piece.
but
Ended up being a key piece.
not only that, but had he done that, or just had an approximation of the first half of his career and the second half of his career, he becomes the greatest Rocky who ever lived, and almost assuredly our first, no doubt, surefire Hall of Famer. We'll see what happens with Todd Helton. But all that's out the window now. And so you have to process those kinds of things. It was a 9-10 year long attachment. You consider the time he spent in the minor leagues. He was our guy. We didn't give up anything to get him. We just, other than money. And eventually, and unfortunately, I fear that may be the biggest component of this, and that's what bothers me. That's why I so badly need to see a next move, because I fear that all we really got out of this were some decent prospects, but I think we could have done better and saved money 3 years from now, and that's just not enough for the best player in baseball.
Okay, question for you guys. How late were you all up tonight with Trey?
I did not sleep. I did not fall asleep.
Well, okay. Well, I've said one thing before I answer that question. What you said reminded me. It was I had one of those moments, like one of those "it's never going to happen" moments, like when it really hits you, and realizing that when he struck out in Game 4 of the 09 NLDS to end the game, that's his last postseason at bat as a Rocky, and that blows. Because I couldn't wait for him to get back and avenge that, because I know that he was thinking about that every single day.
Every day.
Fun Zingers fact, you can find our writer, Adam Peterson, crying in the crowd after Trevor. You know, how they cut to people crying in the crowd? He's dead center in that shot.
That's awesome. But okay, for me, I was up until 3 or 4, but that's not unusual for me. I wasn't up any later than that. Oh yeah?
I was on the radio doing a post-production game, and I got a text from one of our people band here, and I was like, holy shit. And my producer said, you can't say that on the air. And that's how I knew. So I went back out to the stadium and tried to get into the clubhouse, and they went to the Rockies first time I went in.
I was up till 6 a.m. ESPN wanted a fan perspective to be on. So I typed that on he's on that along with juggling everybody else. All of a sudden, a whole bunch of my writers I want to write something about Troy Tulowitzki. Oh, great. I guess we should train people more often or something like that.
First.
I had the really unfortunate experience of waking up to find out about the trade. Kind of an early to bed person anyway, and also had actually lost a family member, so was up the entire night the night before. It was my grandfather, and it wasn't sudden, so. But still, it was bizarre to have that experience, especially now hearing you guys talk about it immediately prior to that. But yeah, I woke up to an email from my editor asking, would everybody please post a reaction to the Tulo trade? And I went, I hope this is a joke.
I feel like a dick.
So Bobby Brooklyn used to. Wait, Bobby Brooklyn used to?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, the funny thing is for that night for me was I was watching the game, and as soon as Chris Bryant hit the ball, I turned off the TV before the ball even landed in the crowd. And I decided, I'm going to watch a movie that night, and kind of wind down the night. I'd gotten so worked up over the Cargo home run.
I'll bury the lead. Tell us what movie
And,
it was.
yeah, all right, one keeper pitch.
I watched the fourth Harry Potter movie that night. I started it, and I got about an hour into it, and I looked at my phone, got the Bleacher Report update saying breaking: Troy Tulowitzki traded to the Blue Jays, and all of a sudden TV off, Twitter on. I was on Twitter for the next probably 5 or 6 hours. I didn't get to bed until probably 4 a.m.
Mostly arguing with me.
True.
All right, here's what happened. This is actually the first time I've told this because it's been hard. I actually grew up a Cubs fan, as many of you know, and when John Axford started to fall apart, I was like, screw this, and turning this game off, and I fell asleep. I wake up to a text from ESPN 4 hours after it happened. And that's why I wasn't on Twitter for 4 hours. It wasn't because I didn't want to tweet. That's why I didn't see it right away. So actually, I was sleeping through the news. I wake up in the middle of the night, and I'm like, oh god. And then I just started like rage tweeting, and I texted Richard, and I'm like, hey, can I get a post on this? And he's like, sure, as long as you do it.
You're like, I need to write this.
Yeah, and like I had already had like 1,000 words at that point when I told Richard I was writing a post on it. So yeah, I was up. I got the post up at 6 a.m. and I was up till 4 the next afternoon, and I still hadn't taken off my Tulo jersey, which is still on.
When did you put it on though?
I put it on. I put it on when I needed to get dressed. Let's put it that way. I was sleeping in my Jewish buff shirt. So, if you needed to know that. Anyways, to the analysis part, and less of the emotional stuff. I think we're going to talk about the bigger picture here, which includes Hoffman, obviously, and the 2 other prospects we got back. But looking at the bigger picture as a whole, you started to get into this with, you thought another move was coming, and the PDP guys talked about this with Nick Creasman, and they were like, oh, we kind of got trade deadline blue balls, basically. But I was really upset yesterday when I saw Drinkage didn't make a move, and I want to actually take a step back from what I had said yesterday and kind of go along these lines. I think the Rockies are going to be good in 2017, really, no matter what they do at this point, unless they really screw up player development with David Dahl, with guys like Kyle Freeland, John Gray. It's certainly a possibility they can mess that up, but I think there's too much. And I think what Bridich is doing is pretty smart. He's not acquiring a bunch of really high-level pitching prospects, but they're not that volatile. In the sense that he's acquiring guys like, if you look at the draft, about from the 2nd to the 7th round of the draft, it was a lot of pitching. He's acquiring a lot of guys that, are, well, Kylie McDaniel rates is about 65 future value to about 55 future value, which means 2 to about a 4-starter. And Jonah Carey always talks about this with Grantland, and he says, the Rockies might have a way of around this pitching conundrum, and it might be just acquiring as many like mid-grade to above average pitchers as possible, and just hoping one of them hands out. And I actually like this plan for Bridich to do this.
Yeah, that's the thing. 4 of them, hoping 4 of them.
Right, hopefully 5 if we're lucky. But and then you look at kind of what the Rockies have done this offseason, this prior offseason, and this year. A lot of the guys Bridich have acquired are very hard throwers. So you're starting to see a pattern develop there. And I think the Rockies will always be able to get free agents like Nick Hunley and Justin Morneau, guys, on the later half of their career that are going to hit it Coors Field, and you can fill out a roster that way. So yes, I'm very, very disappointed in the Tulo trade, and I also think the Rockies could have gotten a greater return. But in the same sense, I'm very excited for the future of this team. No matter whether Tulo was a part of it or not, I still think the 2016, the end of 2016 is going to be fun than the start of 2017. Yeah,
But Hoffman, if you look at his track record, he didn't have wasn't coming off the Tommy John surgery. He's a number 1 draft pick. Right. So I think what you're saying, they're trying to acquire 2 or 3 guys, but I think he can be number 1 guy.
Yeah, and I want to say to Will, you never know with the number 1, number 2, number 3 guy necessarily, because you look at a guy like Clayton Kershaw, his tools, he only throws 94, but he would grade as not an 80 velocity guy, and he's made the most of that certainly. Go ahead, Nick.
So, just kind of switching gears, not necessarily switching gears, but a little bit more into a different angle of analysis here. Probably about a month to a month and a half ago, Sarah Ford and I went to a game. Unfortunately, Sarah's not here today. But we had gotten into a conversation while we were at the game talking about what we think potentially the Rockies might do to this roster. I mean, it's not going to be contending this year. It's pretty clear. Jeff Bridich should be GM. What do we really see happening? And we just kind of got on the subject of, do we trade everybody who stays here, who we build around? And one of the things that I kind of talked myself into, I guess, was that I thought, come this offseason, he's going to blow everything up, right? He's just going to blow everything up and rebuild around Nolan Arenado. Now, I believe based on his inactivity at the deadline, I believe that was his plan from the get-go. But he got an offer from the Blue Jays that I'm not sure he could have refused, because Hoffman figures to be a really, really good pitcher. I know a lot of you are going to disagree with me. I know you are. But I wrote a piece earlier on this year. I think it was my first or second piece for Zingers.
To help you out.
Exactly. and I talked about how, talked about trading Tulo and what return we could potentially expect to get. And I talked about the fact that we being the Rockies fans and the Rockies themselves, we tend to overvalue our top tools, our top assets. We value Tulo at, what, an ace return right away. But we do value it does. So I think we have to take that into consideration when we start creating this trade.
I go with the Cubs everywhere they go, and I asked about the Rockies right then. They think Tulo is probably the best position player in all of baseball.
So who would be up there just from an
Look,
perspective?
I'm not just making stuff up.
Andrew McCutcheon, Mike Trout, who else would be up there?
You may have 3 or 4 total, and then you be total of these. And then you got the rest of the guys. And I've asked them, if you thought this straight up, I've asked the executives, the big shots, and they're like, I don't know. I have no idea why they did this way. These are for professional baseball.
Keep in mind, those like Larimer with Rockies with their high ceiling, low floor types. When you have a 99-mile-an-hour fastball, you got a much larger margin there. And all three of the guys we got in state section, they thought that they were just established college back-end starter type pitchers. These are guys who could, you're rolling dice, but you're rolling much better dice than rolling.
Yeah, because Drew, and I think me and you both thought Daniel Norris had to come back in this field. But instead of getting Daniel Norris and maybe the third prospect they got Jesus, they got two really, I think, a really good prospect, a good prospect, and a guy who has good upside, instead of getting a really amazing prospect and a good prospect. So I think
you got one pitcher and $50 million.
That's obviously a factor.
Yeah.
I laid out the parameters a long time ago for what I thought would be a fair return for Troy Tulowitzki. It was 2 blue chip pitching prospects and another piece. Whatever that other piece was, either needed to be a legitimate lower level potential position player prospect or just a filler utility guy, a major league utility guy. What they got was maybe a top 50 prospect pitcher, maybe, and a long shot Miguel Castro. I like that at 20 he made his major league debut and wasn't terrible. But there are a lot of guys who shoot real high and then crash real quick. So we'll see. He hasn't made any of the top 100 prospects. So they didn't even get 2 top 100 prospects for Troy Tulowitzki. I'm going to watch every pitch Jeff Hoffman throws. I'm going to root for him to become the next Nolan Ryan, and I won't be totally surprised if it happens. I like Jeff Hoffman because the kid, I've seen this kid pitch. Because before we got Kyle Freeland, I was writing up all this stuff on the draft. I wanted Jeff Hoffman over Kyle Freeland. And you know how much I love my Colorado gets their own guy.
But you love Kyle.
Narratives. And I
You're
love
the narrative.
Kyle Freeland. But I think Jeff Hoffman could easily be better. I don't think, now maybe, like Nick's saying, I overvalued what Troy Tulowitzki is actually worth. But I think to Shane's point, I just think GMs in baseball recognize how quality he is, and they all understand what having a shortstop who isn't Troy Tulowitzki is like. And that's one of the things that I think very few people understand, is that there is a major drop-off between him and almost any other guy who plays that one position.
But is there that drop-off between him and Jose Reyes? Because I do want to bring that up. Yes, Jose Reyes' contract sucks, but he's a really good player. He's a 4-time All-Star. He's bad. He's almost a 300 hitter over his career, or I think 285.
Also something to think about, though. If the Jays are trying to dump him,
Yeah.
And they haven't. So what makes anybody think that the Rockies are going to be right?
So let's start
I'm
the
not
Jose.
sure. I'm
Let's
not
go
sure.
ahead and start the
Yeah.
Jose Reyes conversation right now, and I'll get as many of my thoughts as I think I can get through on this really quickly. But I agree. Talent-wise, he's not a huge drop-off, but he is a drop-off in every area, except for speed. But he's also 2 years older. And for a guy who one of his most known characteristics is his speed, being 32 years old and having an injury history makes you wonder how long that's going to hang on.
He hasn't had a triple this year.
He hasn't hit a triple this year. The longer they hold on to him, the older he gets, which is true of everybody, obviously. I heard it coming out of my mouth as it went there. Yeah, exactly. Ain't that the truth for all of us? But he's on the wrong end of the peak of what we're looking at for a team that just traded its superstar prospects. And Reyes has to be moved. I've always liked Jose Reyes. He also profiles really well at Coors Field. I wouldn't be surprised if in his first game at Coors, he hits his first triple of the year, because he can move, and those outfields are enormous. I love that he's a switch hitter. But an injury risk who's getting more money per year, who isn't as good, and who is older, is what the Rockies took back in this. And if his contract runs out, then all they got for him was maybe a top 50 pitching prospect and $50 million.
Yeah.
I like that $50 million.
Yeah, right? Yeah, ship it on over.
Fairness.
Why do I care about Dick Monfort's money, though?
Yeah. Well, hopefully that's Brian's money.
I'm not gonna.
Moneyball situation. I'll pay you back when I sell him for more next year.
As long as you pay for the coach.
Yeah.
David Justice.
All right.
I'm not going to complain about Reyes being over the hill and an injury risk too much, because I don't, maybe you can make this argument. I don't think there's an argument to be made that Troy Tulowitzki is on the right side of that. I don't believe
Give
that.
anything up to get Troy Tulowitzki.
No, I realize that, but I'm saying, Troy Tulowitzki, you have a guy who could, at some point this year, still suffer an injury. It's happened 2 years in a row now. And this could suddenly look like not so great a deal for the Blue Jays. That's a risk that you're taking on when you take on Troy Tulowitzki.
It wasn't part of the point of trading him to get out from underneath that risk.
But what I mean is, this is assuming that the Rockies have to trade Reyes. They have to.
Yes.
Soon.
Yes, they do.
But the Blue Jays, what I'm saying is that the Blue Jays also acquired an injury-prone who was on the wrong side at the peak of their career by less than Reyes, but on the wrong side. And their plan is not to move him. Their plan is to build around him. And that is a risk that they are taking on.
Is it though? Are they planning to build around him, or are they going to keep him for a year and then trade him for more?
Full no trade. He's got a full no trade.
Oh, that kicked in. You're
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
But
he's
that
got-
doesn't mean he's there.
That's true. I mean, he might be like, yeah.
Right. He could be to the Yankees in a second. Who knows? Anthopoulos is going to have to deal with that himself.
But what I'm saying is the Rockies
Or pitching too.
are not going to build around Jose Reyes. He's not going to be on the next good Rockies team.
Oh,
And that's the
Not
other thing.
necessarily. He could be here in 2 years, and that team's going to be good.
Yeah. He could be, though. 2018 he could be good if he's still here. But the thing is,
He's looking 21 though.
the thing is that, like, yeah, I'll be 23, thanks. But anyway,
you
like,
guys can die on fire.
seriously though, getting an ace pitcher, which I realize people wanted, that doesn't do you any good. That's the one thing I want to bring up. Getting an ace pitcher for Troy Tulowitzki does you absolutely nothing, because that pitcher's going to be gone in a year or two. What?
Well, if he's Garrett Cole, he's under keep control for
Look
4
at an
more
ace
years.
pitcher who was just moved at this trade deadline. Cole Hamels has 5 years left on his contract. No, I wouldn't have. Because there are contract implications. But no, if you'd have traded Troy Tulowitzki straight up for Cole Hamels, you've got him for 5 more years. You've got Nolan Arenado. You keep DJ LeMahieu. Everyone gets that like they got to trade DJ. He's 26 years old. They got to trade Charlie Blackmon. Or they should have. They got to trade Carlos Gonzalez. They absolutely must trade Jose Reyes. They probably should trade Rosario and Stubbs if people will take them, but those are inconsequential. Whatever they're going to get for Rosario and Stubbs isn't going to matter. They have to trade those other guys for actual value toward the next winning team. And there absolutely could have been, if you get an ace pitcher and you put him on this staff, and then you call up John Gray, and then you call up Kyle Freeland, and then Eddie Butler, 6 of the top 7 prospects in the Rockies system were already in the Rockies system before the Troy Tulowitzki trade.
At that point.
I got Shane agreeing with me that with Tulowitzki on the team, they could have been a contender next year at that point. Or if you trade him for an ace, a legitimate right now ace who's got years on his contract.
But
like
that's assuming Chad Bettis, Jordan Lyles, Tyler Matzik, John Gray's up, Eddie Butler's fine. That's assuming a lot of pitching is okay.
But you just named 5 guys in addition to Cole Hamels. If that's who they trade him for.
Well, the Phillies were going to finish. And let's not discount Jordan De La Rosa, who's still around.
And if you don't think that this team could have been competitive with Cole Hamels on the roster for the next 5 years, I don't know how you're going to argue that they're going to do it with Jeff Hoffman in his stead.
Well, I mean, the Phillies were competitive, all Hamilton there.
We were never going to trade for Cole Hamels. The Phillies weren't going
Because
to
they
take
have
on
a
Tulo.
completely different roster than the Colorado.
I'm saying the Phillies were not going to take on Tulo. And that was
Starting right field.
that argument is right there.
I'm just saying that's an example of an ace. There are lots of aces out there who are under a lot of team control, or guys who are closer to the major leagues than Jeff Hoffman. There are a lot of opportunities, and the fact that they couldn't deal with the Mets. I'm sorry. I know I'm dominating the conversation. And I don't know whose fault it was they couldn't deal with the Mets, but they needed to get that shit figured out because Noah Syndergaard or Steven Matz or any of these other guys would have been higher prizes than what they got. Like I said, I'm on the Jeff Hoffman bandwagon. I'm fine with it. But there were better options out there, and if this was the best they can do, there was no reason they had to move him right now. They could have done something just like this during the winter and done it all at the same time instead of leaving half the season for Carlos Gonzalez and DJ LeMahieu and Nolan Arenado to say, what the hell is going on with our future? Why do we even care about this baseball team anymore?
Quick one to shut you up. Continuing. Would you rather have had one Noah Syndergaard and let's just say C-level prospect,
the answer to your
or
question
then or 3
yes.
Okay,
The first time.
just wondering what.
But you have to think the Mets weren't willing to give that up.
Stop talking to Drew.
Talk to that.
Let Michelle talk.
Yeah, last night I would have done the deal.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go back to what I was going to talk about when I last had the microphone, which is this whole like big picture. It's okay, David. It's okay. This whole big picture. Where are we going? What has happened? All of that. I am in agreement that I don't think this was a trade they had to make, and I still don't understand fully why they did. But I will say that the first thought I had once I stopped feeling was that I was glad Jeff Bridich was willing to make moves because I'm sick of trade deadlines coming and going with former general managers who shall not be named saying, well, you know, we still think we could contend when everyone around you is saying you're not going to contend. So I appreciate that Bridich at least said it's not going to happen this year. So how do we at least be productive? And maybe it wasn't the best trade, but it was something, you know, and I'm sad to see Tulo go. It probably didn't have to be too low. I guess I'm just glad that he felt like he could make that move and was aggressive enough to do it. I also think that the biggest thing the Rockies should be doing and prioritizing is stockpiling pitching prospects because not all of them are going to pan out. We don't know exactly how Jeff Hoffman, we don't know how John Gray is going to perform. Eddie Butler really was lower, you know, did not perform up to anybody's expectations and still hasn't. And so I feel like because we don't know how they're all going to do, let's get as many as we can, and you know, some of them are going to turn out well. So I like that as a strategy. I just think he probably could have gotten more this week, and the fact that he didn't is disappointing.
And we got some minor breaking news, by the way. Rockies have called up Scott Oberg, Kyle Parker.
Rockies have called up Scott Oberg, Kyle Parker, and reinstated Christian Bergman from the 15-day DL. In exchange, we have Dickerson and Kendrick going to the disabled
That's
list,
the worst news of the day.
and Aaron Rocky designated for assignment.
Darn.
Sorry.
Second time this year.
Okay.
He's trying to be Casey McGee.
So I will say this about Jose Reyes. He was the one piece I was most disappointed about in that trade. I'm trying to stay optimistic that the Rockies are going to be able to deal him by the end of the year or in the offseason, but it's hard. I don't know that they're going to be able to deal him and get anything significant in return. I have been thinking about a package with him and Cargo. I'm not sure that that's going to sell very well. I'm not sure who's going to need Carter, who needs a top outfielder and a good shortstop. I mean,
New York Mets.
that's a good point. The Mets do, but clearly, apparently, Bradich and Alderson don't like each other, as been reported apparently. But yeah, I mean, I would have loved to see, from the get-go, all of us wanted Syndergaard to Rockies uniform. We all want Thor. I think there's no question about that. And I think if we could have made that work, we'd be having a completely different conversation right now. We'd be talking about the potential idea of seeing Thor lead us to a World Series instead of Tulo. So it would have been great to see. It's just too bad that Sandy, Pete, and Jeff are on the outs apparently.
Talk about Syndergaard and you being saying Syndergaard would have been way better. Obviously, he's big league proven. As Hoffman kid is played 13 minor league games. That's a huge difference between Syndergaard and Hoffman. They're the same age. But I want to bring up a point my gripe with purple right now. I'm just gonna look at you.
Bring it.
So you guys have hyped up, as it has me really, Eddie Butler, John Gray for a while. I read something on this forum, and it's just basically replaced Eddie Butler with Kyle Freeland. So it's like John Gray, Kyle Freeland. I want people to stop forgetting about Eddie Butler. And as not even just a starting pitcher, I think Eddie Butler can make a really good reliever if we made that jump. I don't know if that's going to come, but he has a Bugs Bunny, breaking pitch and a fastball, and he has 2+ pitches, and that profiles really well in the bullpen. That was just a quick point I had, but I want to talk about the change of the organization. And under prior regime, I don't know that a Troy Tulowitzki deal would ever take place. It obviously didn't. But I think Jeff Bridich has shown that at least the Monforts have given him the keys to the car. I don't know if he's quote-unquote crashed it, but he has the keys to the car. And that's a positive sign, in my opinion, that we're going to have a really smart baseball guy, Jeff Bridich, who is an Ivy League graduate, run a baseball team, and that's going to be really fun to see. But I want to see where he takes it. I'm going to be very interested in where Jeff Bridich takes it.
It is worth mentioning, I read this right after the Jeff Bridich hire, it is worth mentioning that there were a lot of MLB executives very high on Jeff Bridich. There were a lot of them saying, he's the next top baseball mind. So there is something to be said for that. And I'm excited to see, and you can't judge a GM necessarily on one move. And I think this is what a trap that a lot of us are falling into. Yes, 3 years down the road, can we judge him if it fails? By all means. But you can't judge him on this move right now. You gotta let things play out. You gotta let things happen. And then you can judge. Yes, Drew, I'm looking at you on purpose.
So judgmental.
The thing is that Jeff Bridich, he can be patient, right? We can't. It's hard to be patient because we don't know what's going on and we don't know what his plan is. I presume he knows what his plan is, and he's having a much less difficult time with this than we are. I think if he is able to move people before the waiver trade deadline or before the start of next season, I'm not going to really hold Trey and Tulo against him. Obviously, if that's the only move, it's terrible for this team, but it's not going to be. I think we all know it's not going to be. It was frustrating when nothing happened at the deadline, and we were all expecting something to happen at the deadline, but that's just because we want to see change right now, and we want to know that there's a path going forward, because we don't trust him. But he knows what he's doing, and I have faith that he knows what he's doing. And I think we're going to see a very, very different roster on opening day next year than we see right now. It's just difficult as fans or quasi-fans, and we also cover the team. But we're really fans to not know what his plan is. But that's just something that we're going to have to endure, and it's going to be a rough couple of months. Anybody have a question? I think Brian has a plan. I think there's no way he moves Tulo if he doesn't. I really want to believe that. If we get to opening day next year and Carlos Gonzalez and Charlie Blackmore are still on this team, then I'm going to indict him for that trade. But I don't think that's going to happen.
I just want to clear that's not going to we're going to suck 5 years. on the wall and things. And, everyone looks at the hey, Marv will like those, Tulo would stay. And we have no idea really if Tulo's part of the Tulo's part of the building process. And it's a matter of restructuring everything. Or if it was just, hey, it happened to be the best. I don't mind listening to it, right? So I got the thing. Okay, we need the benchmark to this building. Yeah, I mean, that's not the Rockies. I don't think it's but the Rockies have won a lot. I don't think that there's any added value. That's what they're done. Or by
Well, yeah, well, he might be afraid that people's value is going to drop if people know that we're selling, we're trying to get rid of everybody. And that might be what he's trying to do.
That's why you don't trade your superstar first.
We're doing it backwards, I know.
That's a good point.
Toronto really wanted him. Toronto really wanted him. They really gave up something he thought was fair, and he wasn't ready to have a deal at the end of it. So yes.
But I think we're considering it. Maybe, you know what, maybe everybody,
And they were shopping him. So Toronto came up and said, we really want Tulo, we'll give you this. It wasn't like we were like, you guys want Tulo? Get it rats. You know? They wanted him. Oh, I know. Somebody else?
Alright, I want to move from a little bit of this Tulo thing, but
Well, what?
What about LaTroy Hawkins?
I'll miss him. We'll miss him.
that's actually a good point to make.
I'll miss him 2 letters more.
As one of the Canadian people tweeted, as by Canadian bilingual laws, the Blue Jays have acquired LaTroy and Troy, which was the best thing I've ever seen. Brilliant. Anyways, let's move on from Troy a little bit. And Hawkins was a great player. Has been a very good player for a long time. He had a 16 straight innings pitched with only allowing 2 earned runs, 2 earned runs on the last 16 innings pitched. So he's no slouch in this deal. He was the Rockies' probably best reliever. He'd probably be the closer on the team right now, the way Axford is kind of trending. But where's Irvin? Hey, Drew. Okay, good.
Are you going to come back ever?
I want to talk about this crop of Rockies players. I want to talk about DJ LeMahieu, Nolan Arenado, Charlie Blackmon, and Corey Dickerson. I think the news that we just got out of Corey Dickerson is very upsetting. We see him back on the DL again. I was actually considering writing a piece about why the Rockies shouldn't try and build around Dickerson and Nolan Arenado, even though they're the 2 weak candidates, because I think it'd be like Tulo and Carver all over again. But either way, the team has some big league quality guys who are pretty young still, even though Blackmon is 30. They don't have that much service time, I'd say. So you have DJ, Charlie Blackmon, Nolan Arenado, and Corey Dickerson. Those are the mainstays on this team right now. What do you do with those 4 players?
That's the question I'd ask you, Jake. We had this conversation the other day, and that's the question I was going to ask you.
Thanks. I'll start. Sorry. So I brought this point up with Nick the other day when I was talking to him. I think the Rockies are going to have an awful hard time signing Nolan Arenado. I think they are doing it too late. I think Scott Boras' agent's really going to hurt, especially when Carlos Gonzalez's agent is Scott Boras. And, we all know Scott Boras was not happy when that Carlos Gonzalez deal went down. He thought Carlos Gonzalez took a deal too early. So I have the feeling Nolan Arenado is going to be pushed into free agency by Scott Boras. And I have a feeling before that can happen, the Rockies might trade him. Especially with Ryan McMahon playing the way he is, and if he continues to play the way he is. But that conversation can be held probably a year or 2 from now. It doesn't need to be held right now, unless they do extend him, which should be done now. So I think that's something we have to start thinking about, is what the Rockies are going to do with Nolan Arenado. Charlie Blackmon's fantastic, I think. I undervalued him going into this season. I think the Rockies should probably try and get as much as they can for him with the outfield depth that they have. Even guys like Jordan Patterson, the minors, are tearing it up right now. Then DJ, I'm actually in favor of trading DJ just because the Rockies have so much middle infield depth. I realize that the Rockies probably will never get a better second baseman. He's the best fielder in the way he's hitting right now. But I want to make room for Trevor Story, Forrest Wall, Brendan Rodgers. I also realize that you don't need to do that right away. And then finally, Corey Dickerson. I'm trying to consider what they're going to do with Corey Dickerson because he keeps getting hurt. But I love Corey Dickerson, and it's going to suck trying to watch him play outfield for the next couple years. But guys can't just play first base. Stop thinking everyone can play first base. If everyone could play first base, I'm sure one of us would be playing first base. It's not that easy.
That would be in high school.
Look, okay, that's high school baseball. Willie Rosario is a major league hitter, correct? How come he can't play first base if it's so easy?
Yeah.
There you go.
Can't play catcher either.
Just watch Moneyball. That's all you need to know.
You got on base.
It's about marketing efficiencies, not getting on base.
I really love all four of those guys, and the issue with them right now is they're all really cheap, so I think if we are going to trade them, we need to do it immediately, so that makes me.
Yep. I think we're talking about it.
Yep.
Well, now what?
That's the shortest I've ever heard Drew speak.
Way to be curt, Drew.
I'm glad.
Yeah, go ahead. I wouldn't move DJ LeMahieu unless they know something I don't know about another piece coming in, because in my mind, Trevor Story should be the shortstop of the future on this team, and Jose Reyes should bring back whatever he's going to bring back. But I agree with what Michelle just said. I mean, you got to think long and hard about the Nolan Arenado question. If you think there's a chance he's not going to re-sign here, there are very few guys in baseball who are going to bring back a bigger haul than Nolan Arenado right now. And yeah, well, exactly.
Are you referring to
But don't. Yeah, I think you have to trade Charlie Blackmon. I think if they can get anything close to the quality of hitter and value for Corey Dickerson, they have to trade him, because, like you mentioned, they've got a lot of guys in the outfield. This team can get outfielders. He's not really an outfielder maybe anymore. He just can't play out there. But that guy can hit, so he's worth something.
I think part of the problem with Corey Dickerson, and just while you're talking about it, is I think he should be playing right field, even though his arm's not that good, especially if Coors Field when left field plays like center. But I think Carlos Gonzalez is trying to protect his flags, and that takes away from him. So.
I just don't think Corey Dickerson's going to be a good outfielder no matter where you put him, and I just think he has far too limited of a profile to be a guy you build around, like you were saying earlier. I think you can build around a Nolan Arenado, and maybe even a guy like DJ LeMahieu. I'm a lot higher on DJ LeMahieu than other people are, but I still think he's this good. I think he's a Gold Glove second baseman who's going to hit 300 for the next 4 years. And I don't know why you wouldn't want to have that guy on your team, especially right now when he doesn't cost it. So he's going to go up, but not by that much. He's never going to become, he's never going to get Tulo money. So I think that's the perfect kind of guy that the Rockies team can build around as a position player. And like Michelle said, then you stockpile as many pitchers as you can possibly get, and hope that you can end up running a rotation out there with Jeff Hoffman and John Gray and Kyle Freeland, whatever you get back for Corey Dickerson and Jose Reyes, and then maybe they can be competitive soon enough that they can keep Nolan Arenado. Because if they can't be competitive by the end of 2017 or the beginning of 2018, they're not going to keep Nolan Arenado, and they risk losing him for nothing as opposed to getting a massive haul of prospects. So I think they strongly should consider. I love Nolan Arenado. He's the easiest guy in the world to talk to. Like, that'll be the worst part of it. Well, he wasn't easy to talk to. I had a whole thing about it. I came back on that. I used to think he was a jerk, and I don't anymore. And that was a hard thing for me with the Tulo thing, was I just felt like I was getting to know that guy and sort of earn his respect, and that sucks. But I think Arenado's a legit cornerstone of a championship caliber team, and you want to be able to keep that guy. But if you're going to keep him, you need to flip those those pieces as soon as possible, and for close to major league ready guys.
So if you're going to give DJ LeMahieu money, do you give him like Jed Gurko money? What kind of money are you giving? And that's fair. What, $7-8 million a year?
Yeah, I think DJ LeMahieu is going to be worth every bit of a $7-8 million contract he's eventually going to get. I think he's not going to stop being awesome at second base. I don't think he's going to stop having legit contact skills. He's not going to stop taking the opposite approach. He's not going to stop working hard.
He's got a little bit of pop too.
Well, I think that's on management coaching, to be honest with you. I don't think any of those guys should be running, and I've been very vocal about that. But yeah, I think DJ can absolutely be a member of the next competitive Rockies team, and so can Nolan Arenado. But I think the only way that's true is if they move Carlos Gonzalez, Charlie Blackmon, and Corey Dickerson for more legit pitching. And if they don't, then they're screwed because they're going to lose all of those guys at exactly the same time that Jeff Hoffman, John Gray, and Kyle Freeland are getting good. And for the first time ever, we're going to see in 2018 a Colorado Rockies team that has far better pitching than has position players.
What?
You heard it here first!
Well, if you look at the
Oh, we
plus
also heard
minus
Kyle
stats,
Kendrick was going to have 15 wins.
Those were bold predictions. What was yours, Jake?
That DJ LeMahieu wouldn't be the starting second baseman at the end of the year.
Oh. But
I
anyway,
believe he was the starting second baseman in the
All-Star.
All-Star game.
Yeah.
The All-Star game. Yeah, I think that DJ
Hey,
LeMahieu
Drew,
was
I can admit it when I'm wrong.
But for me, LeMahieu reminds me of Darwin Barnes. He's an asset as long as he stays cheap. At Coors Field, it makes him look like
Darwin Barty couldn't hit 220.
Yeah, DJ LeMahieu was like a way better hitter than Darwin Barnes.
Barnes had 3 years of hitting 280 as well.
So did Brian LaHare.
Don't out-coach me, man.
You want to go to Michael Hoffpower?
Die-hard Cubs fans cry. I still got that in my question.
back to the Rockies. But I mean, DJ, I love DJ. I don't want to see him go. I find it hard to believe that the Rockies are going to find a better second baseman in the near future, if ever. The only problem is, I mean, if somebody really wants him and they're ready to give you pitching for him, maybe. Maybe. But also, if you look at the plus-minus stats, like ERA and ERA minus and weighted runs created plus, the Rockies have actually had better pitching than hitting a lot in their history. But I don't know how much
Hard
you can
factors
stock
are
in
so
that.
screwy at Coors
Yeah,
Field.
I think they way over penalize offense and way over inflate pitchers on those adjusted stats.
Jorge Gaylor was a Hall of
You're
Famer.
talking about Fangraphs. That's an updating war during the season.
Yeah, Fangraphs gets all confusing when you start doing WAR upgrades and WRC plus and how does it actually work out. Park factors are screwing this team up.
It doesn't work for
So
Coors.
many
It
ways.
works for a lot of places. It doesn't
So
work
many
for Coors. I mean,
ways.
it might have worked for Coors in the past, but I don't know.
It just doesn't play like that anymore. You're
Let's
right.
just shut off the humidor. Let's just do it.
I'm down. Let's do it. If you get people who can throw strikeouts, it doesn't matter. If nobody's hitting the ball, it doesn't matter. But it's too bad we don't have
Actually,
a
it
DH.
does.
Oh yeah, sure. But anyway, the point is, I wish we had a DH in the NL just for Corey Dickerson, not for anybody else. I don't like the DH rule, but I love that guy, and it's really too bad that he can't field. But I think an American League team is really going to want him at some point, and it sucks because I love that guy. He's probably currently my favorite Rocky, but that's why he's an asset.
We have an internet question.
Oh, someone's watching.
Jordan Freemeyer. Jordan Freemeyer.
7 people watching.
Wow.
And then Drew started talking, so Nick Stevens wants to know.
I believe it's no licks.
Is the rotation of Gray, Hoffman, De La Rosa, Butler, and Chapman next year too optimistic?
De La Rosa should be here.
Gray, Hoffman, De La Rosa, Butler, and Chapman.
No, he's got the fingers. He's got a finger.
Let's qualify this because I want to just say no rookie's going to make his debut on the opening day roster. So let's just say what the roster will be May 1st.
Well, John Gray's going to be there.
Yeah.
John Gray's going to be there.
That's a bad idea.
You might not ever get it back. You should talk.
Well, I guess I want to clarify too optimistic. Are we talking about injuries? Are we talking about trades? Are we talking about readiness? Like John Gray, I don't know. But I mean, I hope Tyler Chatwood is back and healthy. I hope that John Gray is ready. I hope De La Rosa doesn't go anywhere. I don't see another team really wanting him because everybody knows he pitches better at Coors Field than anywhere else.
This year. I know he's on the road this year. It's
I
really
know.
weird, honestly.
Well, and maybe he's auditioning for another team. I don't know. Because he's probably tired of playing for the Rockies.
Right,
And
not
having all
according
the
to
pressure on his
Not
shoulders.
according to Martha.
I had so much fun talking to Martha about bowling last night.
I love her.
I think that sounds like a great rotation. I think we could at least start strong with it. So, I mean, if that works out, awesome.
Y'all are forgetting Johan.
I don't think anybody's
You know,
forgetting.
I'm plugged in, but like,
Shout out to Bobby Huber.
but like Chatwood, Lord Chatwood, Tyler Chatwood. Like I saw him pitch in a game against Philadelphia in April of last year, and he was absolutely dominant. He can go up and hit like the first four and a third, 4 2/3 innings. Gave up 1 run in 8 innings of work. This is a guy who, if he's healthy, could be a legitimate number 2 guy in a rotation that is a good rotation. So I think people have really forgotten about him this year, and if he's back and he's what he showed the potential to be in 2013 and the first part of 2014, that's an absolutely huge deal. So, I mean, it might be too optimistic to hope that he's the same person because we all saw what happened to Julius Dressing recipes. Yeah, I hope so. I hope Chapman's back.
You guys think Gray should be up right now already, or what y'all?
Yes. Yes. That's a resounding yes. Go on. I want
Start with
Gray
the
up.
rotation for next
But yeah,
year.
anyway, so back to the rotation for next year. I guess everyone's talking about Chatwood, so I'll mention that first. I would love to see Chatwood back in a Rockies uniform. But I'll qualify that with that as long as he's pitching as well as he did before he went down with the injury, which is no guarantee. I understand, but as we all know, Tommy John is not as big a deal as he used to be. So he may come back just as strong, if not stronger, which would be great. But I will, if he is part of the rotation next year to start the season, I will be apprehensive. I'll give him a chance, but I want him to be on short leash. Now, as far as Gray goes, I think there's no question that he'll be part of the rotation to start the year next year. I think at worst he comes up with September call-ups. I don't see how he's not part of that because he's been pitching so well.
He's not on a 40-man. That's something.
They'll put him on the 40-man for it. I don't know.
Have the DFA Rafael Yanal.
I think
right
they're
now
okay
it's
with
not
that.
I think right now it's 30.
Oh, because they're laughing. Good
Okay.
point. And Kyle Kendrick might go on the 60-day DL.
Yeah.
It's looking.
Why
Keep
he
going.
wants to sign up already, right? He's not going to get the 15 losses.
I guess the thing that we've been talking about on Twitter at least, the biggest thing is pitch efficiency. That's the biggest thing he's been struggling with, is what it looks like. But my thing with that is, let him work that out at the major league level.
Right.
There's nothing wrong, as far as I'm concerned, of letting him work out his pitch efficiency at the major league level. As far as I'm concerned, he's wasting pitches down at AAA at this point. I even wrote a piece, a month ago, 2 months ago, saying let's wait on calling up John Gray. He has answered every single one of my questions. I'm ready. I think he needs to be part of the rotation.
Why is he throwing it? Is he covering around 100 something? Yeah.
No.
It's about 80 or 90 and 5.
It's weird. They're pulling
That was
him.
his last one.
Yeah, he went 5 innings and threw 80 pitches in his last outing. The one before that, he went like 7 and threw 80, and they pulled him because the weather was weird or some kind of thing.
No, that was the one
The last one. They pulled him early a couple of times. He's not getting to 100 pitches, but he's had several times where he's gotten up into the 90s in the 5th or 6th inning. The pitch efficiency thing is a real thing, but it also came right after everyone was saying, well, he's getting really good results, but he's not striking anybody out. So they were like, prove to us you can strike dudes out. And then he went out and started K-ing 9 guys in 4 innings and throwing a few more pitches. So
7 or 8 starts, he has to keep an eye on.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Oh,
saying.
yeah.
Something like
K.
12,
Bernard
12,
over-
almost 13. Almost 13.
Yeah.
12.86, I think it was. But anyway,
he's missing bats.
back to the rotation. I think Jorge De La Rosa comes back. I don't see a way they trade him. He's not going anywhere. He's a Rocky.
He's got a no trade problem.
Exactly. So he's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Pretty sure he does.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does.
Time
Jorge.
in 5. Time in 5 years.
Yep.
Yeah. Jorge's here until he says he wants out. And if Martha or Martha says she wants out.
I love Martha De La Rosa.
I've said this more than one time on Twitter. She's the best wife on Twitter.
Oh yeah,
She's
by
the absolute
far.
best.
Yeah,
Martha De La Rosa. Yeah.
She's fantastic.
And back again, moving on in the rotation, I think Jordan Lyles next year. I do believe he'll come back strong next year. I also hope he does at the same time. Believe and hope. That foot thing has been an issue for him. He's had all these injury issues. I'm hoping he can stay healthy all year, but hopefully he can at least bridge us to late next season, in which case hopefully maybe somebody will be ready to be called up. If for some reason if he goes down with another season-ending injury, hopefully we have someone ready by that point, just in case.
Just don't let him feel. He always gets injured when he's feeling.
Hoffman might be ready by the season.
Hoffman might be ready by the season next year. He's already in double A's. Like I said, he's only pitched 15 games.
There's going to be a 10-man tryout for the starting look. There's going to be 10 guys going for that.
Chatwood's now, this is his second Tommy John surgery at Tommy John High School. I need to believe it. I see it to believe it with Chatwood. I really liked him when he was healthy.
You know who Tyler Chatwood's best friend is?
Who?
Troy Tulo.
Oh, yeah.
He's my best friend too.
Drew Stubbs' best friend is Tulo too.
Yeah, those guys are all real
Yeah.
close. It's a California connection, I think. But those guys are always hanging out.
Yeah.
We're always hanging out.
Just had to say it.
We don't even know when the Blue Jays are going to be at school.
I think they're scheduled next year to play the AL East. I think. But we don't know if there's going to be at course.
Make it happen, man. Going off the rotation, we have John Gray, who's obviously going to be there. I really think there's a little question, but I'm not upset that he's not up right now. I don't think there's actually a huge reason to bring him up right now. If the Rockies don't feel he's ready, I'm just going to trust them. Or if they feel like he needs more time or just needs to work on something, you know what? Who cares? They're not playing for much anything at this point, and he's gonna get his big league development next year when it's not gonna matter that much either. You know, honestly, that's the way we're looking at it. And one of the things I think is gonna be huge for John Gray is I want Nick Hundley back when John Gray's making his debuts, his first few starts, because Nick Hundley is a professional catcher. If Mike McHenry is too, but either of those guys I would like to see helping John Gray through this. Jorge, I'd love to see back. He's my favorite Rockies, you know, at least now. And, then we have Jordan Lyles, who I think is really good, and we need to hang on to him. I really like Jordan Lyles. And then the guy who had made the biggest jump this season, the most improved player by far, was Chad Bettis. And that's the fifth guy. But you also have, Eddie Butler, who I still think, might be 10. I brought that up a few times. And then you also have Hoffman, who might come up mid-season. And then you also have Tyler Matzik, who is around.
I believe in Tyler Matzik, man. No, he's done for this season. He's at home thinking about anything other than baseball.
Okay.
That dude, it's all up here. He has ability out the wazoo, and if he can figure that one thing out, Tyler Matzik is. He's the dark horse on this team, man. Do not forget what Tyler Chatwood was for the first half of this season. Is what Tyler Matzik is going to be going into next season. No one's going to be counting on a thing. He's got no risk, all reward right now with Tyler Matzik.
From our friend Chris Creasman, he just asked us via Twitter. Latin. It is. It means street. Greg, you were the one who gave me a Latin lesson the other day on Twitter. So
Modus operandi.
Yeah. At Chris Creasman says. At Shapalicious and at Drew Creasman. So just us, and not you. Chris doesn't care. I think it's just that he's following us. He follows me.
He follows me too.
I'm sorry. Gray is sitting at 114 innings pitched. If he hits 150 by the end of August, do you expect him to be called up? Do you still expect him to be called up in September? I think that's the implication Chris is talking about there is that he would be shut down like he was last year. I remember he was dealing with some arm fatigue last year. And I think a huge sign that shows they're not going to cut him down is that they're letting him pitch deep into ball games when he has the chance, when his pitch count's lower. He's really trying to strike guys out now instead of inducing contact. They really cut the chain on him. I think they're not going to care too much about where he is in innings pitched.
I'll go refill my drink while you talk.
I actually think they might a little bit, because they've been very careful with John Gray, and I think they'll continue to be careful with him, and I think that's wise. I think someone used I can't remember who earlier used the phrase bullets, wasting bullets. Was that you, Ted?
That was not me.
Oh, well, whatever it is, you only have so many number of bullets for a pitcher, generally believed.
You know, I don't. Right.
Yeah, no. All right. However many pitches he needed to, but beyond that, I think I've gone back and forth, but I think they're being very smart with John Gray, and I'm not sure it matters one way or the other whether or not he's called up this season at this point either. I think his development's going to be more or less what it's going to be. I'd like to see him in September as a call-up. I would have called him up right after the All-Star break. But just to get him used to pitching to major league pitchers, just to get his feet wet in the major leagues. They've already passed the deadline for the service clock. I don't want him to wait past next May. But again, I haven't really reconsidered that, I suppose, with not Troy Tulowitzki on the team, which changes things. It's changed several times throughout the year how I felt on whether they should or should not bring up John Gray. But I think he's ready to get out major league hitters. I think anyone who watches him regularly believes that. Every single person I've talked to, scouts, coaches, teammates, everyone believes he's ready to get out major league hitters. But that doesn't mean that it's in the Rockies' best interest. I think they've been shutting him down earlier in these games. We've been talking about, 80 pitches in 5 innings is a lot, but they could have thrown him out there for a 6th and see what he does.
There was a Rockies pitcher last night. I counted 26 pitchers for 4 batters.
Yeah.
And he didn't get any of them.
Yeah, right, exactly. But I think they're going to be careful with John Gray because he is so vital to 2016 or 2017.
How about the team's long-term success just in general?
Yeah, the team's long-term success in general. But next year they've got 10 guys deep who are all looking at a shot at that rotation. And it'll be the most talented 10 guys they've had looking at a rotation spot at a spring training. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, and unless there were some trades, unless there were trades between now and then, which could actually go both ways. If they move Reyes, Cargo, and whoever, Blackman, they could even amp that up. But Jake mentioned most of them. Jorge De La Rosa is still going to be in the mix. Chad Bettis, whatever he's been up to this year. Eddie Butler and John Gray are both going to be there. Jordan Lyles is going to be a factor. What?
Yeah. But and that's what I was going to say. Don't forget about them possibly taking a flyer on a guy that's like Kyle Kendrick. It might happen.
Oh yeah. Well, Tyler's there. Don't forget that Miguel Castro is a good option. Jeff Hoffman's going to be there. Kyle far away as people think, and there are other guys on that Double-A rotation that provide better depth. Even a name like Shane Carl, who's like another Christian Bergman. Not a guy who's going to blow you away, but a quality guy who could eat up some innings who's cheap and young, as opposed to having to pay for a Kyle Kendrick type of dude. There's a lot of guys in this system who can pitch, way more than there have been, certainly in the 4 years I've been covering it, but from everyone I've talked to, at least in the last 20 years. And if they can just swing 1 or 2 more trades, which they just have to, I don't see any way it's not the most talented group of pitchers coming into spring training that they've had to choose from.
Well, that's my point, though. If you bring up Gray now, so he doesn't get major league hitters at the beginning of next season.
Great.
Then he might have a shot at actually making a wild card.
Yeah.
Seriously. So you got to bring him up now to get over that hump. There's always a hump. When pitchers first come up and go from both single A to double A or double to triple A.
Oh yeah, John Gray is going to take his lumps next year the way Eddie Butler's taking his lumps this year. That's just a fact of pitching in the big leagues, especially at Coors Field. I agree with you. I'd at least do it in September. On the other hand, after trading Tulowitzki, I don't think the team's going to be competitive in 2016. So I think you can give John Gray an entire year then to take his lumps in 2016, moving into 2017 with both him and Hoffman. And maybe Freeland at the end of that. Then you got 3 young potential stud guys going into 2017. Maybe they can turn that around, but
Here's the problem. So
You can't forget a guy like Mike Nicorak, who might make a jump quickly, or Kyle Freeland.
Nicorak, I don't think is going to be a quick riser. I think he's going to be very good, but I don't expect him to be a quick riser. He's pretty raw.
Do you think he'll? Maybe he'll get to AA quickly and then kind of sit a year at AA and then AAA. Because he seems like a guy that's just going to get through the low minors because his fastball is such a good tool.
He got roughed up in his last start in Grand Junction. Gave up like 5 runs in 3 innings or something like that. I don't expect that to be a regular. Yeah. Nicorak legitimately, I saw him throw it in a bullpen. He's got a 96-mile-an-hour sinker. It's a real pitch. Oh, that's a thing he can do. Well, he's 18 years old. So let's. Kyle Freeland came out after 3 years in college, polishing his game. John Gray came out after a couple of years, maybe even also 3, at least 2. I can't remember.
John Gray's not that young. I mean, he's like
No, yeah, but he's young as a professional, but not young in general. Mike Nicorak is a huge 18-year-old, but he's 18.
one of the big differences around the two is that we've always told if Tulo and Charrito were healthy, the Rockies were a contending team. Now we don't even have that. So like, if Johnny's great, less certain than Tulo and Charrito.
The whole thing's up in the air.
By 2017, we won't know what the guess will be.
Right.
Well, in addition to what you're saying about Creasman, did you let him pitch 60 innings this year? He ran up the start of the season. You can move that up to 20 innings and let it throw after 80 or 85 innings next season. And then when he contention in 2017, he's off.
Wait to throw him until they need him. If one thing the Rockies have done smart is they've not Steven Strasburg's John Gray. They have not put themselves in a situation where they're like, we're going to prove how awesome this guy is all throughout the minors in his first year and then sit him down when we make the playoffs. Wait to use those
like
bullets.
Chris Sale, or even Chris Sale, who's been overused. They didn't prove anything, but
You want John Gray pitching his best at the end of 2017.
Yeah, that's why.
but Chris Sale's continued to be injured.
Years,
I'm with you, but I'm not even sure you want a Rockies pitcher throwing 200 innings. I'd go back to the. I'm getting off. I'd piggyback.
Sorry, pitcher.
They did the math, it's never been done before, so they're starting pitchers facing
Dan O'Dow tried to do that. It was called SOMO, shorter outing maximum appearances.
And it
didn't. It kind of worked.
Right,
I want them to do it, but
That's the right thing to do. Yep.
And I am in favor of SOMO, just to get that on the record, but
Yeah.
you
One of the
sport.
smartest things O'Dowd ever did. Really groundbreaking. Even Bill James came out and was like, wow, the Rockies tried one of the most brilliant things I've ever seen, but it didn't work right away, so everyone's going to think it was a bad idea and abandon it because. Oh, yeah.
Early in the season, the Rockies were going to hit the pitcher 8 because it gave them 2 leadoff hitters. They were going to have 2 if you got second. And,
And it was working right up until they stopped.
One story about Dan O'Dow, when I heard about the trade, where I called MLB Network to try to get him an interview.
Yeah.
He very, very flatly declined, and he's still doing interviews.
Okay, so we have nothing from the internet.
I want to stop for 1 second and just. They probably couldn't hear what you were saying earlier, but you were bringing up a point that what makes you think that they're going to contend in 2017 because they haven't contended if Tulo and Cargo are healthy, and they haven't contended if this and all these ultimatums.
Better pitching.
You say better pitching, and I agree with that, but I just want to say this. I heard someone say a few minutes ago that they could contend for the wild card spot next year. I want to I don't want to be the guy that's cynical and shuts everything down. Why don't we just see where this team goes? Let's just not. I'm sick of making predictions for this team because honestly, I've been so wrong so many times. Right? And true. Well,
Did your predictions get rained out?
yeah, they even got rained out.
Or were they hurt?
I think there's some regulated.
They're bad.
Election.
But Drew, I like just the timeline of your predictions over this season alone is it hurts to think about where we thought this team could be, and then how bottom they could be, and then where they could go again, and then where they couldn't, because this team is so volatile, and we know that because of the talent, and the talent is going to be there in 3 years, and it could be just as volatile. So I don't know. None of us really know. So I just want to kind of push off the prediction thing, and let's just kind of talk about these guys as their talent, and they have talent worthy of a postseason roster in 2017 rather than they're going to accomplish it. Because another thing, and this transitions me into this. What if Walt Weiss is still around and they don't have the best manager? Or if they have another manager who might not be that great? And you don't know what this team is going to be in 2017. You don't know what the organization is going to look like. You don't know what the coaching staff is going to look like. So it's hard to make these huge predictions.
But that's our job as media, is to make predictions. That's literally our
We're not media, we're bloggers. We are sometimes. I am sometimes media.
I've never been media. There's two fists. Have you ever been media? Just two fists and fails media.
Anyways, so around the room, just nod your head yes if you don't think Walt Weiss is going to be back this year or next year.
Yes, if no.
Yes, if his contract will not be renewed.
His contract will
Okay,
not
so
be
we all agree Walt Weiss will not be back. Richard, go ahead and ask that question from the introvents.
So Jordan had a statement last question. I want to get your feelings on this. I'd be willing to bet that in the draft room last year, Bryce was pounding the table, insisting they draft Hoffman over Freeland and got overruled by O'Dowd and Monty.
Yep.
So when you saw the opportunity to get that,
O'Dowd wasn't
really
doing
wanted
it, overruling
you
it.
took it. I'd love to know what the folks here think about that.
So Jordan's question for the people that couldn't hear Richard is basically that Bridich wanted, Jordan Freemeyer from Purple Row, that Bridich really, really wanted Hoffman, and when he had his opportunity to come get Hoffman, that he didn't draft him, that he took it this year in the trade. So I'll go around the room. I don't really know what the question is here, but did he go out of his way to get Hoffman, I think is more of the question.
Yeah, that's the whole point. I absolutely do believe that. I don't know if he consciously said, I'm going to go shop Tulo for Hoffman, but I think as soon as Hoffman got on the table, he was like, okay, let's try and make this happen. Because now in this case, now we have Hoffman and Freeland.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as it turns out, this may turn out to be a great depth move, if nothing more, but I think absolutely that it at least went through Bridish's mind.
I don't know if that's a depth move because, like, I'm not comparing him to Kershaw and Greinke, but if you have two frontline starters, that's not a depth move. That's a really good thing.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely, but then that's what I mean. At worst, it's a depth move. That's what I meant to say.
I mean, I think if he was doing that, I hope it was because Hoffman really is going to be great, not just because he's trying to prove something. And because if that's what he's doing, the price was really high.
If that's what he's allowing his emotions to control trades, then he's got to go.
That's a serious spike right there.
It scares me a little bit to think about that because it sounds like I can see somebody on the Blue Jays who knew this somehow being like, well, we'll give you Hoffman.
I don't know.
That makes my stomach turn to think about that was what was the thing that pulled the trigger on it.
That was the thing.
But I don't think Anthopoulos is like that. Is that brilliant? Like, oh, he
You don't know that. You're out of his mind.
Well, they also wanted to.
They also wanted to. Hold on. Bridich is such a close to the best guy. We all know this. Do you think really he was like, I need this Hoffman guy no matter what? Maybe it came down to this. Maybe it came down to this. That they were like, okay, you can either have Hoffman or whoever their fourth ranked prospect was, and he goes, I need Hoffman in this deal. I don't think he was like, okay, I'm going to the Blue Jays rather than anyone else, any other team in the major leagues because I know they have Hoffman. I think it's just that it worked out that way.
We had 3 or 4 prospects on the table already. Hoffman was not offered. As soon as Hoffman was offered, he looked at Vince Lockford across the room and said, can you do this now? Hoffman's here. He said yes.
Because Hoffman's better than the prospects.
Right. It's because Hoffman's good.
Here is how this trade will be a saving grace to me. Here's where I talk myself into this, because as has been mentioned before, Jeff Bridich is not an idiot. I don't believe for a second, even as frustrated as I am by feeling like I don't see a plan, I'm not even sure there is a plan. And some people do, and I get that. I thought there was a plan 2 months ago when most people thought there was no plan. So I get that. And clearly I was wrong, because the plan I thought was there, not the plan. But I do trust Jeff Bridich as an evaluator of young baseball talent. I have seen firsthand the work he's done on the minor league system over the last 4 years for the Colorado Rockies. And if he scouted Jeff Hoffman to an extent that he's ahead of the curve on this guy, he sees a top 10 prospect instead of a top 60 prospect. And Jeff Hoffman isn't a second Kyle Freeland, but is a second John Gray. Then this whole thing turns around for me and I go, you know what? Bridich was a genius to go after that guy, knowing that that guy was what they needed. But
That has to happen.
that's why it's so disconcerting, because now that has to happen. You're putting all of your eggs in the Jeff Hoffman basket.
Or are you putting all your baskets in the philosophy that getting more pitching talent will work, and we're just looking at it linearly?
But it has to be, no, it has to be more specific than that. It has to be that they believed in that guy, because that guy wasn't even rated as a top 50 prospect by MLB Pipeline or Baseball Prospectus or Baseball America. He's in that 50 to 60 range. If you're trading the best player on your team and the best player in the National League, maybe the best player in all of baseball, you have to believe that that guy coming back has a very high likelihood, not just of being a number 3 or a number 2, but of being a number 1 guy, because that's the only way the trade makes sense, is if he sees something in Hoffman that several other people don't. And I wouldn't put that past him. I've seen him nail 4 straight drafts in a row and build a brilliant farm system. So maybe he's onto something before the rest of us. And I hope to God that he is. But that's a lot of pressure on Jeff Hoffman and now Trevor Story. That's it, man. Jeff Hoffman has to be good, and if he's not, this becomes the worst trade in the history of the franchise. He rolled some big old dice on this one, so I'm hoping he scouted Jeff Hoffman real hard.
I just didn't want Daniel Norris to live in Boulder.
I think Hoffman's the better fit than Daniel Norris.
Listen to the fan.
You guys should talk about Jeff Hoffman versus Daniel Norris. I've been talking too much, but I know you guys have.
I'm willing to believe the difference between Tulo and Hoffman, or Tulo and Reyes, is those 3 pitchers. And I think the Rockies had a winning trade. Out of those 3 guys, they get 800 league average or better innings out of those 2 guys.
But
Sounds true.
Richard, no matter what you do, you're not going to replace one player with 3. Unless you're getting the Mark Teixeira deal from going from Texas to Atlanta, where you're getting the entire team, you're not going to replace one player with 3 really good ones. It's just not how it works, in my mind at least. And I think especially that's not how it works if you really believe in your farm system. And I realize pitching's their spot where they lack depth, but if you're looking at it like they say, okay, well, I'm going to trade a shortstop for 3 outfielders, that doesn't really work. So I still like the move, but looking at it from the Daniel Norris angle, the Tigers traded a rental for Daniel Norris, right? Troy Tulowitzki, not a rental, traded for Hoffman.
You said you liked the deal?
And then you
That's
said
the first time I've actually outright
No. I'm saying I like the deal. Speaking from that philosophy, that they're going to get more pitching.
Okay.
They're basically hedging their bet and just keep acquiring pitching and hoping some of it turns out, which I think should be their philosophy. I don't actually like trading Troy Tulowitzki. I just like the way they're going. The way they're
at least
approaching.
they got 3 pitchers who can throw 100 miles an hour.
And like I said at the start, with the draft, the way they approach the draft is similar, where they're just getting a lot of really quality pitching.
Miguel Castro sits on 98. Let's not pretend like I just talked